while since the Cybertruck was released, and this redesign comes at a time when orders are going through the roof. Whether you've ordered the Cybertruck or are considering ordering the Cybertruck, you may wish to stop watching now. You won't unsee this design once you've seen it. Looking at the side profile of the Cybertruck, there's very little to tell us that it's a truck. All of the angles are pretty new and pretty unique. Really, it is only the wheel arches that indicate there is a truck underneath. It's hard to know what the Tesla designers were thinking when they came to the wheel arches. When we look at the rest of the truck, we can see that there's almost nothing that makes it truck-like. The design language is utterly new and very different to how we think of a ute or a pickup truck. The wheel arches are absolutely a design language from trucks. They've kept that design language and removed everything else. It was introduced as a competitor to the Ford 150, putting it in the category of pickup trucks, or trucks as they're known in the US, or utes as they're known in Australia. What if instead of thinking of it as a pickup truck, we thought of it as an SUV with an open tray? Suddenly, our thoughts on what this product is can change. When designing anything, there's always two considerations to take into account. There's the design of the object itself, and there's the design of how it is manufactured. With the Cybertruck, there is sheer genius in the design of the manufacturing. To understand this deeper, we need to only look at the competition. Porsche assembles their Taycan in a massive glob of buildings. It covers 667 square feet, and it includes a 3,000 foot long conveyor bridge that runs over a major highway. They break the assembly into 4 areas: the body, the paint, the drivetrain, and the assembly. A full assembly line only moves as fast as the slowest part of the whole line, and that's typically the paint and the bodywork. And with Tesla, they've completely revolutionized how this will occur. Bending metal is so much simpler than stamping it. For this reason, I'm going to begin with the look of the wheel arches and work myself back to their function. If you're considering ordering, you're going to love the improved design of the wheel wells and flares. I imagine your first reaction to this is that it's incredibly ugly. I want you to go deeper. We've only changed one element. We've just changed the shape of the wheel well, and yet the truck looks incredibly different. That's the approach I'm taking. Make a small change and create a large impact. I'm going to start with the rear wheel. I'm trying to be as different as possible. In this case, I've taken the design aesthetic of a Citroen, and it's not working. Taking the angles from the rest of the car, we see a wheel well that is fully integrated with the design of the Cybertruck. We can ask basic questions. Which one is faster? This or this? I know I wasn't going to talk about function, but this cutout is just 3 cuts, and it gives plenty of clearance to the wheel itself. It may even be more aerodynamic. We have the option of pulling it in more. For now, I'm going to stick with the longer version. With the rear looking super fast, it's time to turn our attention to the front. Copying the new rear wheel cutout for the front doesn't work. It's kind of an interesting view because it reminds me a little bit of a horse with the legs on either side and the belly hanging down the middle. The problem with this design is that it doesn't look like the car is moving, it doesn't look like a fast car, and the space and harmony is not there. What if we simplify further and we don't change the shape of the wheel wells? Well, what could we do? Well, the first thing we can do is simply change the color of the flares. If we think about flares on four-wheel drives, they're pretty much black and they're pretty chunky and they kind of stick out. The Cybertruck is so clean and minimal that the flares, being black, really stand out. What if we just change the material of the flares to be stainless steel, like the rest of the Cybertruck? You could even make the flares thinner than the 3mm shell. That would mean that if you're in an accident or you graze up against something, then you're only sacrificing the flare, not damaging the rest of the shell itself. You could probably use a similar technique on the front of the car to create crumple zones. From the outside you wouldn't know if it's 2mm or 3mm stainless steel, but when the impact occurs, well, the 2mm is going to crumple in a slightly different pattern to the 3mm. You've watched this entire video, and coming to the end of it, there's something that I've been holding back from you, and you've just discovered it just by watching this video. It relates to the idea of the size of an object being related to its form. If we think of an iPhone, we think of it as being pretty sleek and pretty minimal. And I was once told by a designer that for small objects you can't put a lot of detail into them. They have to be kind of simple. And I always thought that that's why cars were more complex, because they're bigger objects. You can play with the lines more and use the space of a car to redirect the gaze and change the idea of the shape itself. Having been through this exercise and seeing the Cybertruck as it is, I now wonder if the simplicity of form is contagious. You've been looking at a Cybertruck for a few minutes now. Let's compare that view that's now locked away in your brain with how you think a Lamborghini appears. Before watching this video, you probably thought a Lamborghini was pretty simple and pretty clean and pretty angular. Now let's see just how angular the Lamborghini is. We've seen how Tesla has prepared us for a pickup truck and then changed all the language of a pickup truck apart from the wheel wells. They're obviously preparing us for the next step, which is to change the wheel wells and change the definition of this vehicle. It is much more like an SUV with a large tray. It is a new category. I've only spent 2 hours on this redesign. It is a work in progress. If you'd like to see the finished product, leave a like. This helps in 2 ways. Once I get to 10,000 likes, well, I'm just going to finish off the job. Also, if it gets to that many likes, well, I'm going to attract the attention of Tesla. There is a story from Apple which I love. It's the story of an animator who goes in to get a job at Apple only to be rejected. As he's in the foyer, Steve Jobs approaches him and looks at his animation for what was to become the dock. On the spot, Steve Jobs offers him a job, and the dock becomes a reality for the Macintosh. A similar thing can happen here. YouTube is my waiting room.